Let me explain this a little bit more. We're just kind of fiddling around with things. Paragraph 1, I gave the first paragraph in our HTML code the ID of paragraph 1. The hash up in the CSS tells me that this is the ID of that exists somewhere in my code. The ID to some tag that exists in my code. The hash always means that. If I typed a period para1, then that would say that there is a class called para1 within my HTML code. Now, we didn't use classes. Sometimes it's good to use IDs and sometimes it's good to use classes. But for our purposes, we're going to stick with using IDs to help us style our HTML code. So this hash mark, this hash sign, tells us that in the code for ID para1, we're going to have a width of 600 pixels. The color of the text is going to be black. The border, the padding is going to be 20 pixels of padding around the inside of the border. Then we're going to have a 2-pixel solid black line as the top border and a 2-pixel solid black line around the right side of the border, border top and border right. However, the second paragraph is going to have a width of 700 instead of 6. It's going to have a different color. The color of the text is going to be gray. The border is going to be the same size and color as the other one, but it's going to have much more padding, and all of the text is going to be aligned in the center so that everything is centered. So let's take a look at what that looks like again. Let's save again. And let's take a look at what that looks like, and you can see how different that is. Now we can do a lot of different things. You'll see, here's all the text that's centered instead of justified left or justified right. We could text align right toward the right side of the border. And then your text would do this. And you'll notice that it's right justified now instead of left justified as normal. Or we could go back and do text align left, which will left justify everything, and you'll have the jagged border over here. And now you're starting to see some of the things that you can do here. Now, what do we want to do with this bit of text here? Well, what I think what we're going to do is we're going to, let's copy this, because we want them to look similar, but we want to have some things that are a little bit different to make some interesting visual effects here. We're going to keep it the same width. No, we're going to make it the same width as the top paragraph. We're going to make the color of the text blue. I don't know the hexadecimal code for that, but it's okay. You can just type in blue, and then instead of a regular border, what we're going to do is say border, let's see, what do we want to do? We want to go border right, and we'll keep it the same size as the rest, and border bottom. And you can find all of these selectors, all of these values in your handbook. Border bottom, 2 pixels solid and black. Don't forget the semicolon. And we'll save. And remember, now our third, and don't forget to change the name. The name of the paragraph we want to change this time is ID para 3. So for ID para 3, paragraph 3, we want width of 600 pixels, blue text, a right and bottom border, and padding of 60. Let's change that to something different. Let's say 40 just to do something a little different. And then text align left. We'll save this. And let me open the window just a little bit more so we can see everything, and refresh. And there we go. Now we can see that we have 3 paragraphs, but the paragraphs have different ID names, And because we're able to give them different ID names, we're able to format each paragraph individually however we'd like. We kept the black color of the text here, we turned the text color gray here, and we turned the text color here blue, and we gave each one of these paragraphs a different border. One that completely surrounds, one that only has a top and right border, and one that has a right and bottom border only. And you can see, if you really look at this, that now you're starting to get sort of a three-dimensional effect by doing these very simple things with your CSS. And like I said, you'll notice that the actual three blocks of CSS command are very similar in the fact that their syntax is always the same. You're always going to have your selector. This is a selector, and it's the ID para1 selector, so that anytime you see, you're telling the browser, anytime you see this within a tag, this is the code that you use to format it. And we gave it these particular values, these particular properties and values, and we always separate our property and values with a semicolon within that block of text. And if you need to comment something out in order to test things without erasing things completely, all you have to do is /***, and that'll comment out anything that's between them. You can do this on multiple lines, and you can completely comment out an entire block of code if you want to experiment with something different. Okay, and you can see how the color changes when we use Text Wrangler. Now it's grayed out. The gray tells us that here's a block of code that's been commented out. And so now you could use a different ID tag to, you could experiment and give your para1 ID some different values and see what they do. And if you don't like them, just get rid of your comments, your commenting out. And this was just a very basic introduction, again, or basic refresher on how to use CSS that's embedded into your web page to give you some style to your text. Okay? In the next lesson, I'm going to do a little bit more with your styles and show you a few more things that you can do with the CSS, but I'm also going to show you how to take the CSS out of your HTML file and put it into its own individual file that's called a style sheet, and that the HTML page will be able to read off of the style sheet to get the effects that you want for your web page. Okay, and that's it for now, and I will talk to you again in the third installment of these screen recordings.